You wake up one morning and everything around you looks exactly the same. The same room, the same people, the same routine, the same conversations. But something feels different, almost as if your life still fits on the outside but no longer fits on the inside. You can't explain it. Nothing terrible has happened, yet nothing feels right anymore. The things that once excited you barely hold your attention. The goals you spent years chasing suddenly seem meaningless. Even the version of yourself you've spent so long becoming begins to feel like a stranger. Most people mistake this feeling for burnout. Some call it anxiety. Others convince themselves they simply need a vacation. But what if none of those explanations are the real answer? What if this uncomfortable feeling isn't your mind breaking, but your mind preparing? What if the life you built has become too small for the person you're becoming? And what if this video appeared today because you've reached exactly that point? Not because of destiny, not because the universe secretly chose you, but because something inside your mind has quietly been changing for much longer than you realize. Psychologist Carl Jung once observed that until we become aware of what lives beneath our conscious mind, it quietly shapes our lives while we mistake its influence for fate. In other words, sometimes we don't discover a message, we become capable of hearing it. Think about that for a moment. The same book can sit on your shelf for years. Then one random afternoon, you open it, and every sentence feels like it was written about your own life. The words didn't change, you did. The same conversation you've ignored 100 times suddenly hits you differently. The same advice you once laughed at suddenly becomes impossible to forget. The information was always there, but your mind wasn't ready for it. Until now. Modern neuroscience offers an interesting explanation for this. Your brain filters almost everything around you. Every second, your senses collect millions of pieces of information, but your conscious mind only notices a tiny fraction. Not because the rest isn't important, but because your brain only allows through what it believes matters to you. Have you ever decided to buy a certain car and suddenly started seeing that exact model everywhere? It wasn't that thousands of new cars magically appeared overnight. Your attention changed. Psychologists call this selective attention. Your brain began searching for something that had suddenly become meaningful. The same thing happens during major transitions in life. When your identity begins to shift, your mind starts noticing ideas, people, books, and conversations that your old self would have ignored completely. This is one reason moments like these feel so strangely personal. It isn't magic, it's awareness. And awareness changes everything, because once you see something, you cannot unsee it. Maybe you've already noticed this happening. You don't enjoy conversations that once entertained you. The endless gossip, the constant competition, the obsession with appearances. Instead, your attention keeps drifting toward questions that never interested you before. Why am I doing this? Who decided this is success? If I removed everyone else's expectations, what would I actually want? These questions can be terrifying because they don't just challenge your choices, they challenge your identity. Most people spend years building a version of themselves designed to be accepted. A good employee, a responsible child, a dependable partner, a successful adult. None of those roles are bad. The problem begins when you forget they're only roles. Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to function in the world. Everyone has one, you have one, I have one. But masks become dangerous when we mistake them for our real face. Imagine wearing a heavy backpack every day. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Eventually, you stop noticing its weight. Not because it became lighter, but because your body adapted. Then one day, someone removes it. Only then do you realize how heavy it actually was. Your persona works the same way. You become so accustomed to meeting expectations that you forget what life feels like without carrying them. Then something unexpected happens. A failure, a breakup, losing a job, moving to a new city, a birthday, even a random afternoon where you simply sit in silence, and suddenly the mask begins to crack. Not because you're becoming weaker, because you're becoming honest. That honesty can feel frightening, because once you realize you've been living according to expectations you never consciously chose, there's no easy way back. The old life still exists, but it no longer feels like home. And this is where most people make a mistake. They assume something inside them is broken, so they distract themselves, they work harder, scroll longer, stay busier, anything to avoid hearing the uncomfortable question quietly growing louder inside them. But questions ignored rarely disappear. They simply wait, sometimes for years, until one day they become impossible to silence. There is a sentence that most people never dare to say out loud. I don't know who I am anymore. Not because they have no personality, but because the person they have been trying to become no longer feels real. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as an identity transition. It isn't something reserved for teenagers. It can happen at 25, 40, or 70. Whenever your old beliefs stop explaining your life, your mind begins searching for a new framework. The problem is that there's a space between those two identities, a strange place where you are no longer who you were, but not yet who you will become. That space feels terrifying because human beings naturally crave certainty. Your brain would rather stay in a familiar prison than walk into an unfamiliar freedom. This isn't weakness. It's biology. Deep inside your brain sits a structure called the amygdala. Its job isn't to make you happy, its job is to keep you alive. And to the amygdala, uncertainty often feels just as dangerous as physical danger. That's why changing careers feels frightening. Ending an unhealthy relationship feels impossible. Speaking your truth makes your heart race. Starting over feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. Your brain isn't asking, will this make me happier? It's asking, will I survive this? For thousands of years, that instinct protected our ancestors. Today, it often keeps us trapped because the greatest risks we face are no longer wild animals. They're uncomfortable conversations, uncertain futures, and becoming someone we've never been before. This is why growth almost always feels like loss. Before you gain confidence, you lose certainty. Before you gain freedom, you lose familiarity. Before you discover yourself, you lose the illusion of who you thought you had to be. Most people quit here, not because they aren't capable, but because discomfort convinces them they're going in the wrong direction. Imagine a caterpillar for a moment. From the outside, the cocoon looks peaceful. Inside, it's complete destruction. Scientists discovered that the caterpillar doesn't simply grow wings. Its body literally dissolves before reorganizing into something entirely new. If you could observe only that stage, you wouldn't think transformation was happening. You'd think everything had gone horribly wrong. Yet hidden inside that chaos, a new organism is quietly taking shape. Sometimes, real growth feels exactly like that. From the outside, people think you're confused. Inside, you're rebuilding. Carl Jung believed every person carries parts of themselves they've hidden away. Maybe as a child, you were told to stop asking so many questions, so your curiosity went into hiding. Maybe you were called too emotional, so you learned to suppress your feelings. Maybe people laughed at your creativity, so you convinced yourself you weren't creative at all. Over time, those rejected parts don't disappear. They simply move into the unconscious. Jung called this the shadow. Many people think the shadow contains only anger or fear, but it also contains your courage, your imagination, your ambition, and your voice. Everything you buried to become acceptable. Some of your greatest strengths may be hiding in the exact place you've spent years avoiding. Becoming your authentic self isn't about adding something new, it's about recovering what you abandoned. From the moment you're born, people begin handing you a script. Study hard, choose the right career, be successful, don't disappoint your family, find someone, buy a house, stay busy, retire. If you follow that script, most people will call your life successful. But very few will ask a different question. Was it ever your script to begin with? There is something strangely comforting about living according to someone else's expectations, because if the path is chosen for you, then the responsibility isn't yours. But the moment you begin choosing your own direction, everything changes. Freedom doesn't just give you possibility, it gives you responsibility. This is why so many people unconsciously wait for permission. Permission to quit, permission to forgive, permission to say no, permission to start over, permission to become the person they've secretly wanted to become for years. But here's the uncomfortable truth. No one is coming to give it to you. There will never be a perfect day. No voice from the sky, no message that says, now you're finally ready. Readiness isn't something you discover. It's something you create. Confidence usually comes after action, not before it. A child doesn't learn to walk because they're confident. They become confident because they keep standing up after falling. The same is true for your life. Waiting to feel ready is like waiting to become strong before lifting a weight. The strength comes from carrying it, not avoiding it. Growth has a strange side effect. It can make other people uncomfortable. When you begin changing, people may tell you, you've changed. But what they often mean is, you used to be more familiar. Your courage quietly reminds them of the changes they've been avoiding. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say the goal of life is success, popularity, or perfection. He said to become, because becoming is alive. It changes, it evolves, it learns, it grows. Perhaps that's why you felt restless lately. Not because life is falling apart, but because your old identity has stopped growing and your real one has started knocking. Most people spend years searching for purpose as if purpose is hidden somewhere far away. But purpose often isn't something you find. It's what remains after you've stopped pretending, After you've removed enough fear, enough expectations, enough masks, until only the truth is left. The truth rarely shouts. It whispers. It speaks during quiet walks, long drives, sleepless nights, and moments when you're finally alone with your own thoughts. The problem is that most people fill every silence with music, scrolling, notifications, or endless entertainment. Not because silence is empty, but because silence is where the truth usually speaks. Maybe that's why this video found you today, not because of fate, not because of coincidence, but because somewhere beneath all the noise, a quieter part of you has been asking questions you've been too busy to hear. And perhaps the biggest mistake would be closing this video, feeling inspired, only to wake up tomorrow and continue living exactly the same way. Because insight without action changes nothing. You don't need to reinvent your life tonight. You don't need every answer. You don't need certainty. You only need one honest step, one conversation, one decision, one boundary, one page written, one application sent, one habit changed, one truth admitted. Small actions, taken consistently, have rewritten more lives than dramatic moments ever have. Years from now, you probably won't remember every sentence from this video, but you might remember how it made you pause. How, for just a few minutes, you stopped running and listened. If that happened, then this video did exactly what it was meant to do. Because maybe your next level wasn't waiting for more motivation. Maybe it was waiting for this moment. The moment you finally realized that becoming someone new doesn't begin someday. It begins the moment you stop abandoning the person you've been all along. If this message resonated with you, don't just leave with a feeling, leave with a decision. Write one sentence in the comments. Today, I choose growth over comfort. Do it for yourself. Because sometimes the smallest promise we make is the one that quietly changes the rest of our lives.